Yeah, you do whatever you want to. I'm just a guest.
Great. Thank you.
And a very honored guest, sir. We're very glad to have you here. Again, my name's David Daniel. I'm the publisher of the Centerville Press, and I'm with Mike Hobson. And we have a special guest here to help us tonight to delve into some of the personal experiences that people have had over the years with the events that occurred on May the 22nd, 1973 in Brent, Alabama. And if you aren't aware, that was the day that the notorious tornado came through the town of Brent and destroyed the town. And this gentleman that's agreed to join us tonight is a gentleman who has a very storied history with this particular tornado. James Spann is with us. And James, thank you very, very much for joining us. Let me explain, James, what we are doing. The city of Brent has commissioned us to publish a commemorative magazine commemorating the events of 50 years ago for the May 22nd tornado. And we've been interviewing individuals, and we've also been gathering stories, gathering articles, gathering old Centerville Press articles, and so forth. And I just want you to know, sir, that you're a legend in this area. And I know you have spoken to a number of groups over the years, and you have told your story about the things that happened for you in relation to the tornado here in Brent. But would you mind just giving an overview of that again, please?
Yeah, sure. So I don't know if I'm a legend. I'm just old as dirt. So in May of 1973, I was wrapping up my junior year in high school.
Wow.
And I was in Tuscaloosa. I'm really from a little bitty town in South Alabama called Greenville. Most people have never heard of Greenville, Alabama, but we moved to Tuscaloosa when I started fifth grade. And so I was at a school called Tuscaloosa High School. And my hobby in 1973 was ham radio. In 1973, we didn't have cell phones, believe it or not. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have any of this stuff. And during times of emergencies, ham radio operators were critical. And quite frankly, they still are, because cell service can go out in a hurry. And so I volunteered. I love weather, just love weather. Never thought I'd do it for a living, but I absolutely love weather. And we volunteered with the local civil defense. That's what emergency management was called back in those days. And we had a fairly urgent call that Sunday evening that they needed help in Brent, and they were hit by a tornado. And that's all we knew. And this, of course, all came through ham radio. And so I went down with Joe and Grace Stuckey, two other ham radio operators in Tuscaloosa. And we were probably one of the first volunteers to get into town from external volunteers from out of town. We went down 82 pretty quick. And I have never seen anything like that in my life. I will never forget the sights and the sounds and the smells of what we saw. And understand, I was a kid that loved storms, loved tornadoes. I could not wait for the next severe weather day. And it never dawned on me that this was serious business. The tornadoes affect real people at a real place at a real time. And that night changed my life. I'll never forget the darkness, no power, just pitch black. The only thing you could see were the blue lights on police cars and flashlights. The darkness was the first thing. And then we noted the urgency in the people that were in town working to help people. Urgent, which means this is not good. I figured, so there's some people hurt in here. And later, of course, we'd find out that 5 people would die. And then the other thing that was so odd, it was that smell. I'll never forget this as long as I live. Some of the first responders, they call it the scent of death. I don't know what it is. They don't know what it is. It's a sulfurish pine smell, and you can't get it off your body for 3 days. You can take shower after shower, and that was there. And so we set up our gear, and they sent us up on the hill after getting into town and seeing the horrific damage. They said, it's going to be best for you guys to set up a communication post up on the hill in Centerville. So we went up at Centerville Baptist Church and set up the radio gear there. And we stayed there for hours came back, took a nap, and I would go back. I think school was over by then. School was out. It just got out
right.
May 27th.
That's right.
And so I would go back and forth to Centerville and work that station for 3 days. And we handled messages from all over the world from people. Some had relatives that lived in Brent. And understand, phone service was down. There was no such thing as cell service in 1973. And when phone service goes down, we are it, ham radio operators. And we set up this system where we handle all of these messages from, and we tried to prioritize those messages for those that had family members in Brent that needed health and welfare information. And of course, we had just gobs and gobs of people that wanted to help from all over the country. What can we do? Can we send a crew in? We tried to help coordinate that. So I stayed there for 3 days, and I got to sleep in Tuscaloosa, but come back down. But most of my volunteer work was spent in Centerville. And then on the third day, when it was kind of winding down what we were doing and the phone service was restored, we got a chance to see Brent. And that's the first time I've ever seen tornado damage like that. It was horrific. This was a long track F4 tornado that originated north of Demopolis. It came through Greensboro, tore Greensboro up, hit the WSR 57 radar site just southwest of Brent on Highway 25. And goodness, Dale Black and those guys, they were lucky to be alive. They were absolutely lucky to be alive, but they did the right thing. But, they got the word out. They all got that message back to the Weather Service in Birmingham. The tornado warning was issued. They did exactly what they were to do. But we saw the damage at the radar site. And of course, the damage right in town was just horrible, and at the church. And so it was life-changing for me. That was the night that I realized that this is serious business. It's not a joke. It's not a game. It's not something that should give you an adrenaline high. It's something where instead of loving this stuff, yeah, it's okay to be fascinated by it, but you should channel that energy into helping other people. And that's what I've tried to do over these last 50 years. And of course, ultimately, I would get into this as a profession. My first major in college was electrical engineering because I didn't think you could do weather for a living, but I learned that you could. And I changed majors and finished in meteorology at Mississippi State. And I've been doing this on television. I started in 1978. So 5 years after the tornado, I went on television and have been on television since doing this. But it taught me a lesson, and it's a lesson in empathy and compassion and understanding the culture of the people that you serve. It's been my joy to come back many times over the years and speak at the Brent Baptist Church. And listen, I do children's ministry. My folks in my congregation, they're between the ages of 5 and 12. Those are my people. So doing big church is kind of creepy, but anytime there's an opportunity, I'm invited. I love to go back, and had a chance to share many, many times over the years. And, people like Jerry Powell and these guys, and there's not many of us left, quite frankly. You look back, and this was 50 years ago. And many of the people.
We're getting a little long in the tooth, aren't we, James?
Let me tell you what, man, we're no spring chickens here. And most people have no recollection of this. And I'm glad that, some things are being done like what your project here, because future generations need to know about the day. They need to know the stories. They need to know the science of the day. And I look back on some of the great tornado days in the state, like March 21st, 1932. We don't know much about that day at all. February 18th of 1884. We don't know much about that day, these big outbreaks like this. So having all of this written down, I think is important, because for those of us remaining that know this story and that lived through the story, we won't be here that much longer. So I'm glad that you guys are working on this project. That's marvelous.
Well, thank you, James. And I want you to know, as I've been thinking about this interview with you, there's a thought that continually goes through my mind. And after interviewing some of these eyewitnesses and the things that we've been doing here over the past few weeks, I've come to realize there was another important event that came out of the Brent tornado, and it's tie in with you and your work with shortwave radio. You apparently got a burden in you to see that people were as well informed as possible in the future, so they weren't struck unknowing what was coming at them. And I want to tell you that I think you have almost worked a miracle in the media, in that I remember when weather would get bad in Alabama, the TV stations would just report it on their local evening newscast, so to speak, and then move on and continue on with a regular program, maybe keeping some graphics on the screen, which was good. But I think you kind of had to take on a different mantra there with the broadcast stations. You wanted to be live when there was threatening weather in your viewing area, and I want you to know it worked. And I don't know how people could get along without it now. It's kind of like cell phones. People around here see whether or not your jacket's going to come off to know whether or not they should run and hide.
You know, and I'll say this, the folks that I started working for 26 years ago in 1996, this channel, that's the first station that ever gave me the freedom to do that, unrestricted. The Albritons owned this station, ABC 3340. They put it on the air, and they gave me unrestricted permission to stay on TV as long as I want to. And the owner said, it's your call. I'll never second guess you. You stay on as long as you want to. It doesn't matter what's on TV. And that's what changed everything. And I will always be thankful for them opening the door for people to do that. And of course, now it's a different game, and that most people don't consume linear television like they did in the 70s and 80s. Now people go home and watch Netflix and Hulu, and that's fine. But we have to provide products and services to reach, that audience as well. And we of course, we stream our coverage, and we want people to be watching on their phone, but we just have to keep up with the times. It's our job to minister to people and to reach people and to have a relationship with people. And
I see in your story, James, and I've heard your testimony, and I want you to know how thankful I am that you have been touched by the creator of the universe, and you have him as your Lord, because I've heard your testimony, and I know that you have a heart for people to be able to do the kind of thing you did when you were able to get the broadcast stations to start transmitting live coverage during severe weather events. And I don't know the answer, but I bet there are thousands of people alive today because they got good weather information because of the burden you had in your heart, which I think is inspired by the love of the Lord, to do the things that you did. And I want you to know that I'm very grateful, because I know.
Well, you're way too kind. I'm just a cog in a wheel. There's a lot of moving parts in the process where warnings are generated and disseminated and consumed, and I'm just a cog in this big machine. But yeah, and listen, I tell young people that want to do this all the time, you have to, number one, be willing to work long, hard hours. Used to be you'd be on TV at night. Now with phones, they never turn off. You've got to work long, hard hours, but you've got to work with a servant's heart. That's it. You can't be doing this for yourself. You have to do it at the convenience of the people that you serve. And this might be 3 a.m. It might be a Saturday, might be a Tuesday, and you're going to make some sacrifices for that. And I love to take our interns to a Walmart and engage them in conversations with real people that they'll be serving, to see that, look them in the eyes. This is who you're going to be serving. But the truth is, we've come a long way, but goodness, we still have a long way to go. I'm telling you, just in Mississippi, within the last week, 25 people died. 12 years ago, 252 people died on my watch in one day, April 27, 2011. That's inexcusable for anybody, for the people, for me. And it's just a reminder that we've got work to do in the way we message severe weather events. And we've got to do better for people that live in mobile homes. We know that. There's so much more we have to do. So there's just a lot of work to be done. And I look back on the 1973 day, and I don't think most people knew that it was coming. There was a warning, but I don't know if television was interrupted. I don't know. I honestly don't know how the warning process worked. I do know that Dale and the folks at that radar site got the word back to Birmingham of the hook. We've been hit, and the warning was out. But maybe those 5 lives could have been saved if the warning was disseminated widely. I just don't know. But we've come a long way. I look back on some of the historic events in the state, like March 21st, 1932, generational outbreak, probably 500 people died. There were no warnings. Nobody knew. So we're moving in the right direction, but we've just got to focus on getting better. And what happened May 27th?
I've lived long enough to see the change that occurred in weather reporting by broadcast stations. And the change has been very, very significant, started by you and your burden to try to help people. And I just want you to know it's impressive to me to be able to sit here and talk with you today, knowing that your burden that you had for all this has saved so many lives. And there's really no way to measure it, but I know it has made the event safer than it was when the tornado hit Brent. Because you're right, a lot of the people that we talked to here had no idea it was coming. They just knew the weather was getting bad. And I hear that over and over again in the people that I'm interviewing here. And today, that's not the case. Today, when there's a significant weather event coming, most people are very well informed and actually watch the radar transitions of the movements of the storms in real time. That is just absolutely fascinating compared to what we used to have.
And I think they're getting the message too about what you need to do. Like it's so good that I see so many people popping on a helmet. Most people that die in tornadoes is blunt force trauma to the skull, above the neck. And by putting on a cheap Walmart bicycle helmet, that will enhance your chance of surviving 10 times. And I think that messaging is getting through. And I think it's starting to get through with mobile homes, but that's one of our biggest challenges. A lot of people that live in mobile homes, that they don't have transportation. It's really easy for us to sit here and say, you need to get out of a mobile home. Well, what if you don't have a car and you can't do that? Or what if there's no shelter nearby or no business that's open 24/7? And we can't provide oftentimes a lead time of more than 6 or 7 minutes for a tornado. Maybe sometimes, but sometimes the shelter might be 30 minutes away. And so, we've still got challenges, but I do think we've come a long way. And I do think there needs to be a time to celebrate the people that have lived through these horrible tornadoes here. I'm not quite ready to do that, especially in the case of April 27th. I'm still focused on the 252 people that died on my watch. I've memorized almost every name in almost every story, and it's very motivating for me. These were precious people that died, and the 5 people that died in Brent were precious people that died, and we should, cherish their memories as well. But again, it's just
for your heart, James. That's a heart of a servant right there, and it has had an effect. It has saved lives, and I wanted to make sure that I acknowledged and pointed out what I see and what I've seen. I'm old enough to remember how it was, and I see how it is now, and I say, what made the change? Well, somebody with a burden, and I think you played a very, very important role in changing things for the better. And I'm very grateful.
Well, you're way too kind, but I do think for some reason I was born to be standing in front of a green wall when there are tornadoes flying around here. Why me? I'm just some country bumpkin from Greenville, Alabama. It makes no sense. Nobody in my family has any interest in this, but I do think that everybody has a specific purpose in ministry, and once you figure out what it is, life gets really good. I sleep 3 hours a night. I mean, most people would say you're crazy for doing this, but I love what I do. I can't wait to go to work every day. And if you're doing what you love to do and what you're called to do, life gets really good. And the 2 things that matter in life, it's your relationship with God and how you treat other people, and that's it.
Amen.
And so in my case, being able to help people during a tornado emergency or a hurricane or a flood or whatever, it's a joy to do that. And I just think I'm called to do that. And I understand, guys, that this Brent tornado is 73. You should have seen me before that, man. I was just a wild high school kid, hair down to my shoulders, and I just couldn't wait for the next storm. We go out there and chase those things, and we did it in a very dangerous fashion because we didn't know any better. We'd go out into rural parts of Pickens County and Greene County. We dared a tornado to get through there, but that night changed everything when you realize that real people are affected by these things. And this is a tragedy. And instead of focusing your energy on yourself, your love of these things, so let's focus your energy on the people that you're out there and help them. So it's been a great ride. And I'm just getting started. You know what's weird? I'm older, but I feel better now than I felt when I was 30. And there's so much work to do. So I'm very energized and just very honored to be able to serve.
Well, I think it's a little humorous, but it's also kind of fascinating to realize that there are people that judge what they're going to do in the weather situations by how fast your coat comes off.
Well, so you know how that started. So it used to be we had these hot television lights, and now they're LED and they don't emit heat, so it's not as bad as it used to be. But these TV studios, they got hot. It was a hot box, and you're in there for 5, 8 hours. I mean, it's so stinking hot. And so I just started, taking a jacket off and rolling up my sleeves. And then I learned that people started reading something into this. Like they're reading into the fact that the weather's getting really bad, man, when he's doing that. And the social scientists have told me that. They said, hey, I know it was a joke to start with, but now they're actually reading messaging into this. And so what you need to do is to use it. So don't you dare roll up your sleeves until we have a genuine tornado emergency.
People will get the wrong signal, won't they?
Yeah. You just got to be really careful with that. And so, I've learned that people read your body language. They read the eye contact. Like this past Friday night, we had the horrible Mississippi tornadoes, just horrible with loss of life. And we had one of those in Amory, and the radar signature it would take your breath away. And while we couldn't show the tornado live, they're all rain wrapped and it's at night. But knowing what we know, that's going to kill somebody. And I had to cut out all this. Sometimes I'll say silly things and this is serious business. And people can read that in my tone of voice and the body language and everything else. And by the grace of God, that thing dissipated. It occluded and dissipated right as it moved into Alabama. It did drop 2 smaller tornadoes in one in Marion and a couple in Morgan, but nothing like the ones in Mississippi. But and I think that's the one thing we learned too after the 2011 outbreak. What we do is not enough. All I know is physical science. I don't know anything about being on TV or radio or the tweet or any of this stuff. I'm a numbers guy, and we don't understand human behavior, and we're asking people to do things. And so we've got to integrate social science into physical science, an interdisciplinary approach. And they have really helped us, these social scientists. They have been very helpful. So I think we're better now than we were 12 years ago.
Well, I know that your passion for serving others and being of value to other people's lives has certainly saved many lives in Alabama and changed things so much for the better. If somebody's uninformed today as to what the weather's doing, they're just not. They're intentionally not paying attention.
And we know that they tell us, there's some people you can't help. And he said, don't worry about those. Focus on the ones that do want help and the ones that do want to pay attention. And we've tried to do that. But gentlemen, I hate to do that. I got to go start the 6 o'clock news. My window is up here. I have to go in there and say the 6 o'clock news starts now.
Well, thank God for you, James Spann. You've served a world of people that you'll never know here.
Well, I don't know about that. It's a joy to do what I do, and I can't. I'll be in Brent to speak at the Baptist Church. I want to say it's the 28th of May, and looking forward to that. So I'll see a lot of old friends, and we'll have great times. Yeah, it'll be great. But fellas, thank y'all so much, and y'all have a blessed day.
Thank you. 1978 to 45 years.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Good night, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mike Hobson. I appreciate your work here tonight.
All right.
Appreciate our viewers. If y'all get a chance and you ever run into James Spann, let him know how much you appreciate all the work he's done to help people throughout Alabama. He's a treasure. And we look forward to seeing him when he comes here for the remembering of the 50th anniversary of the Brent tornado. Thank you for being with us tonight. I'm David Daniel with the Central Press. Thank you.